Sharks are among the ocean's most feared and fascinating predators, often misunderstood due to their portrayal in the media. With powerful bodies and razor-sharp teeth, these creatures have roamed the seas for millions of years. While shark attacks on humans are extremely rare, they ignite widespread fear and curiosity. Most incidents occur due to mistaken identity, not aggression. Sharks play a vital role in maintaining marine balance, yet human activities threaten their existence more than they threaten ours. Understanding shark behavior is key to coexistence and conservation. Here are 6 stories. Off the rugged coast of San Diego, California, where the Pacific Ocean's restless waves kissed the golden shores, an extraordinary incident unfolded on May 9, 2025. This stretch of coastline had long been known for its diverse marine ecosystem, with seasonal migrations of various shark species, including the formidable great white. The waters had witnessed numerous rescue operations over decades, but none quite like what Petty Officer Nathaniel Nate Collins would experience that fateful morning. San Diego's maritime history stretched back centuries, from Spanish exploration to its modern significance as a naval hub. The Coast Guard station there had responded to thousands of distress calls, with their crews trained to face everything from raging storms to medical emergencies at sea. Yet nature still held surprises even for the most seasoned personnel. That morning began like many others for the crew of rescue helicopter CG-6579. The sky hung heavy with a light marine layer as Lieutenant Zachariah Ortega received the distress call at 7:38 a.m. A small fishing vessel, the Morning Light, had capsized approximately 3 miles offshore. 2 fishermen, brothers Morgan and Terrence Whitaker, were clinging to the overturned hull, their situation growing increasingly desperate as the current threatened to sweep them further from shore. The Coast Guard crew, consisting of Lieutenant Ortega as pilot, Ensign Victoria Blackwell as co-pilot, Petty Officer Nate Collins as rescue swimmer, and aviation technician Maxwell Rodriguez operating the hoist, launched immediately. As they approached the site, they spotted the capsized vessel bobbing precariously in the rolling swells. The brothers' frantic waving confirmed they were still conscious, though clearly exhausted from fighting the cold waters. Hovering 20 feet above the scene, the helicopter maintained position while Petty Officer Collins prepared for deployment. The sea below churned with debris from the fishing vessel. Bait boxes, coolers, and fishing gear spread across the surface. What the crew didn't initially realize was how this floating buffet of potential food sources had attracted predators from below. As Collins was lowered into the water, aviation technician Rodriguez noticed an unusual movement beneath the surface. A large, dark shadow circling approximately 30 yards from the capsized boat. He immediately alerted Lieutenant Ortega through the intercom system. The lieutenant acknowledged the sighting but determined they needed to proceed with the rescue, keeping a vigilant eye on the situation. Collins reached the water with practiced efficiency, swimming toward the stranded fishermen. The Whitaker brothers, seeing their rescuer approach, felt a surge of relief wash over their exhausted bodies. What happened next would be captured on the helicopter's surveillance cameras and later analyzed extensively by marine biologists across the nation. As Collins secured the first brother Morgan into the rescue basket, the dark shadow beneath the water accelerated toward the surface. Rodriguez shouted a warning as a massive great white shark, later estimated at 16 feet in length, breached the water in a spectacular display of predatory power. The massive creature launched itself partially out of the ocean, its muscular body glistening in the morning sun, reaching an estimated height of 8 feet above the waterline. Time seemed to compress for Collins as he registered the massive jaws and rows of serrated teeth, less than 15 feet from his position. The shark, likely confused by the unusual activity and vibrations from the helicopter's rotors, had investigated in the most dramatic way possible. Collins instinctively pulled the fisherman closer to himself, his heart hammering against his ribcage. Lieutenant Ortega responded instantaneously, lifting the helicopter higher while maintaining position for the hoist. The shark crashed back into the water, sending a spray of salt water into the air and creating a wave that rocked Collins and the fisherman. Remarkably, the shark did not attack but instead disappeared into the depths, perhaps startled by the helicopter's noise and downdraft. With adrenaline coursing through his system, Collins maintained his professional composure. completing the rescue of both brothers with methodical precision. First Morgan and then Terrence were lifted to safety, followed by Collins himself. Once aboard, the reality of what had transpired hit the entire crew. They had just witnessed one of the rarest and most dangerous natural phenomena, a great white shark breaching within striking distance of humans. Upon returning to base, the crew underwent a thorough debriefing with Commander Prisha Naidu. The incident was classified as a near miss in official reports, though privately, marine biologists consulted by the Coast Guard suggested the breach was likely investigatory rather than predatory. The shark had probably been attracted by the debris and disturbance rather than targeting the humans specifically. For Petty Officer Collins, the experience served as a profound reminder of humanity's place in the natural order. Despite all their training and technology, they remained visitors in an alien world where ancient predators still reigned. In the months that followed, Collins would become an advocate for shark conservation, speaking at local schools about respecting rather than fearing these magnificent creatures. The footage of the incident, released 6 months later after careful consideration, would become an important educational tool for both Coast Guard training and marine biology programs nationwide, demonstrating the unpredictable power of nature and the importance of maintaining calm in crisis situations. The Whitaker brothers, grateful for their rescue, established a scholarship fund for future Coast Guard rescue swimmers, ensuring Collins' legacy of courage would inspire generations to come. The coastal town of Dahab, Egypt, had long been renowned for its breathtaking underwater landscapes, drawing divers from across the globe since the 1970s. Nestled on the southeast coast of the Sinai Peninsula, where the Gulf of Aqaba's crystal-clear waters met the rugged desert shoreline, Dahab's Blue Hole and surrounding reefs offered some of the most spectacular diving experiences in the world. But in 2017, what began as a routine guided dive would end in tragedy, forever changing how local dive operators approached certain areas of these magnificent waters. Emma Harrington, a 34-year-old British marine photographer with over 500 log dives, had traveled to Dahab specifically to capture images of the region's vibrant coral formations. Having visited Egypt's Red Sea coast several times before, she was considered experienced enough to join advanced diving groups. On April 23rd, Emma joined a group of 6 divers led by instructor Mikhail Rostov, a Russian expatriate who had been guiding dives in the area for over a decade. The morning started with perfect conditions, minimal wind, excellent visibility, and calm seas. After a thorough briefing at the Coral Coast Diving Center, the group boarded a small boat that would take them to a site known locally as the Canyon, a magnificent underwater ravine famous for its dramatic topography and abundant marine life. The dive began without incident. The group descended in formation with Mikhail leading and his assistant instructor bringing up the rear. As they reached a depth of approximately 25 meters, they encountered schools of colorful anthias fish darting around the coral heads, while larger groupers moved lazily through the deeper sections of the canyon. Emma, entranced by a particularly striking coral formation, lingered slightly behind the main group. She signaled to Mikhail that she wanted to photograph the area, and he acknowledged with an okay sign, assuming she would catch up shortly. This momentary separation, something experienced divers often did, would prove fateful. As Emma positioned herself for the perfect shot, adjusting her buoyancy to hover steadily in the water column, a large shadow appeared in her peripheral vision. Moving with surprising speed and purpose was a bull shark, estimated to be nearly 3 meters in length. Bull sharks were unusual but not unheard of in the region, known for their ability to tolerate both salt and freshwater environments, and unfortunately for their unpredictable aggression. The shark circled once, evaluating the strange creature in its territory. Emma, aware of proper protocol during shark encounters, stopped photographing and slowly began to position herself vertically in the water, making herself appear larger while maintaining steady breathing through her regulator. But before she could complete this defensive posture, the shark charged. The first strike came without warning. The bull shark's powerful jaws clamped onto Emma's right leg just below the knee. The force of the bite tore through her wetsuit and into flesh and muscle. Nearby divers later reported hearing a muffled scream through the water as Emma instinctively struck at the shark's sensitive snout with her camera housing. The shark released its grip momentarily, but, in a behavior rarely witnessed in shark attacks, immediately circled back for a second, more determined attack. This time it seized Emma by the torso, dragging her deeper into the blue water beyond the canyon's edge. Mikhail, now aware of the emergency, raced toward her, but found himself too distant to intervene in time. In what marine biologists would later describe as a remarkable display of presence of mind during extreme trauma, Emma managed to reach for her buoyancy control device, BCD inflator, and pressed it firmly. The sudden inflation caused her to rise rapidly toward the surface, a dangerous maneuver that risked decompression sickness but was her only hope of escape. The rapid ascent apparently startled the shark, which released its grip. Two divers from the group, witnessing her uncontrolled rise, quickly followed, careful to maintain safer ascent rates themselves. They reached the surface minutes after Emma, finding her conscious but severely injured and losing blood rapidly. The boat crew responded with practiced urgency, pulling her aboard and applying pressure bandages while radioing for emergency assistance. Despite their efforts and a swift transit to the nearest medical facility in Sharm el-Sheikh, Emma succumbed to her injuries from blood loss and trauma before reaching the hospital. The incident sent shockwaves through the diving community. Investigation revealed that local fishermen had reported increased shark activity in the area in the preceding weeks, but the information hadn't been widely disseminated among dive operations. Mikhail provided a detailed account of the attack to authorities, describing Emma's calm professionalism even in her final moments. Marine biologists from Cairo University who studied the incident concluded that several unusual factors had contributed to the attack's severity. The shark's unusually aggressive behavior, particularly the secondary attack, was atypical even for bull sharks. They hypothesized that the animal might have been in an agitated state due to territorial disputes with other sharks or changes in the local ecosystem. In the aftermath, Dahab's diving community implemented stricter protocols, including mandatory shark awareness briefings, enhanced communication systems between dive boats regarding wildlife sightings, and temporary restrictions on diving in areas where large predators had been spotted. A memorial plaque for Emma was placed at the Coral Coast Diving Center, serving as a somber reminder of the ocean's unpredictable nature. Emma's underwater camera was later recovered from the sea floor by a search team. Remarkably, the waterproof housing had protected the memory card, and among the final images was a blurry but identifiable photograph of the bull shark during its initial approach, a haunting last professional act from a woman who had dedicated her life to documenting the beauty and power of the underwater world. The incident, while tragic, contributed valuable information to shark behavior research and led to improved safety measures throughout Egypt's Red Sea diving industry. Local dive masters now point to Emma's case during safety briefings, emphasizing that even experienced divers must maintain vigilant buddy systems and respect the primordial power of the ocean's apex predators. The coastal town of Margaret River in Western Australia had long been revered among surfing enthusiasts for its powerful waves and pristine beaches. Since the 1970s, this stretch of coastline has developed a reputation that drew surfers from around the globe, despite, or perhaps because of, its isolated location nearly 300 kilometers south of Perth. What many visitors failed to appreciate, however, was that these waters were also home to one of the highest concentrations of great white sharks in the world. In 2019, these two realities collided in a way that would test the courage of one local lifeguard and forever change the community's relationship with the ocean. Callum Thornberry had served with the Margaret River Surf Life-Saving Club for 7 years. At 29, he had become one of the most respected members of the patrol, known for his unwavering calm during emergencies and intimate knowledge of the local waters. Born to a family with 3 generations of lifeguards, Callum understood the sea's moods and dangers better than most. He had witnessed numerous shark sightings over the years, but never a direct attack, until that fateful morning of March 17th. The day began with challenging conditions. A heavy fog had settled over the coast, reducing visibility and creating an eerie atmosphere across one of the area's most popular surfing spots. Despite the limited visibility, a group of dedicated surfers had paddled out at dawn to catch the excellent swell rolling in after a recent storm. Callum had started his patrol shift early, launching the club's jet ski for a routine sweep of the area. The Western Australian government had implemented a sophisticated shark monitoring system following several fatal attacks in the region between 2011 and 2016. Part of Callum's responsibility was to check for any recent pings from tagged sharks and maintain visual surveillance of the waters. As he navigated through the mist approximately 300 meters offshore, the radio on his waterproof vest crackled with a warning. A satellite tracking system had detected a tagged great white shark moving into the bay. The notification indicated the shark was large, approximately 3.7 meters in length, and moving directly toward the area where the morning surfers were waiting for waves. Callum immediately increased speed, heading toward the group of 5 surfers who remained oblivious to the approaching predator. The fog muffled the sound of his approach, and he needed to get closer before they would hear his warnings. Through breaks in the mist, he caught glimpses of dark shapes beneath the surface, the unmistakable silhouette of a great white moving with purpose toward the dangling legs of the surfers. He pushed the jet ski to its limit, closing the distance while repeatedly sounding the craft's horn. The surfers finally noticed his approach, but their confusion about his urgent signals cost precious seconds. Callum shouted for them to return to shore immediately, his voice barely carrying over the sound of breaking waves. 4 of the surfers began paddling toward the beach, but the 5th, Jasper Kingsley, a 34-year-old visitor from Melbourne, hesitated, unwilling to abandon what had promised to be an excellent session. This momentary delay proved catastrophic. Without warning, the water beneath Jasper's board erupted. The great white shark, now confirmed to be nearly 4 meters long, surged upward with such force that both surfer and board were lifted momentarily from the water. As gravity reclaimed them, the shark's jaws clamped down on Jasper's right leg, just above the knee. The surfer's wetsuit turned dark with blood almost instantly. Callum accelerated directly toward the churning water, a maneuver that contradicted standard safety protocols but reflected his instinctive understanding that seconds would determine whether Jasper lived or died. The noise and approach of the jet ski, combined with the distinctive electrical field it generated, appeared to disorient the shark. After a terrifying moment during which Jasper was pulled beneath the surface, the predator released its grip and disappeared into deeper water. Jasper resurfaced, conscious but in shock. Callum maneuvered the jet ski alongside him, reaching down to grasp the injured surfer's wetsuit collar. With a strength born of adrenaline and training, he pulled Jasper across the back of the craft, immediately applying pressure to the wound with one hand while steering toward shore with the other. The other surfers had reached the shallows by this time, and beachgoers, alerted by the commotion, rushed to assist. Among them was Dr. Lydia Nakamura, an off-duty emergency physician who immediately took charge of Jasper's care once he reached the beach. Her quick application of improvised tourniquets likely prevented him from bleeding out before the medical helicopter arrived 15 minutes later. Jasper survived the attack but lost his leg below the knee. The shark, later identified through bite radius and tooth markings as a mature female great white, was not seen in the area again. Marine biologists speculated that the attack may have been investigatory rather than predatory. The shark tasting what it couldn't clearly see in the foggy conditions before determining that Jasper wasn't its usual prey. For Callum, the incident marked a turning point. While he had always respected the ocean's dangers, experiencing such a violent encounter firsthand left him with a deeper understanding of the fragile balance between humans and marine apex predators. In the months that followed, he worked with local authorities to improve the early warning systems and education programs for visitors to Margaret River's beaches. The town council later awarded him a medal for bravery, though Callum insisted that he had merely done what anyone would do in his position. What he didn't share publicly was how the memory of those moments, the blood in the water, the primal fear in Jasper's eyes, the sheer power of the shark, now accompanied him every time he patrolled the waters he had once navigated with carefree confidence. Jasper eventually returned to Margaret River a year later, having learned to surf again with a prosthetic leg. He sought out Callum, and the two men formed an unlikely friendship, occasionally surfing together in the calmer, shallower waters where sharks rarely ventured. Their story became something of a local legend, a testament to human resilience and a reminder that in the ocean, we are always visitors in a wilderness that demands our utmost respect. The Maldives archipelago, a string of coral atolls scattered across the Indian Ocean like emerald jewels on azure silk, had long been a paradise for travelers seeking tropical perfection. In 2015, the nation's tourism industry was booming, with luxury resorts competing to offer increasingly exotic experiences to wealthy clientele. One such experience, underwater photography, had gained popularity among fashion magazines looking to create otherworldly images that would captivate audiences grown numb to conventional beauty. Elena Volkova, a 25-year-old rising star in the modeling world, had arrived at the exclusive Ara Resort and Spa on North Mail Atoll 3 days earlier. The Moscow-born model had rapidly gained international recognition for her ethereal features and willingness to endure challenging conditions for the perfect image. This particular assignment for Lumiere magazine promised to be her most ambitious yet. A series of underwater photographs featuring high-end resort wear against the backdrop of the Maldives' famous coral gardens. The photography team was led by Alexei Kuznetsov, an award-winning fashion photographer known for his technical precision and artistic vision. Having worked with Elena on previous shoots in challenging environments, he had personally requested her for this assignment, confident in her ability to appear graceful while holding her breath for extended periods. Completing the team was Ramesh Gunaratne, a Sri Lankan dive master with 15 years of experience guiding underwater excursions throughout the Indian Ocean. On the morning of November 12th, conditions seemed perfect. Clear skies, minimal wind, and exceptional underwater visibility predicted to exceed 30 meters. The team had selected a site known locally as Blue Garden, a coral reef formation approximately 800 meters from the resort's overwater bungalows. The location featured a dramatic drop-off where the reef plunged from 7 meters to over 40, creating a stunning blue backdrop that Alexei believed would contrast perfectly with Elena's pale complexion and the vibrant designer clothing. After a thorough briefing and equipment check, the team boarded a traditional Maldivian dhoni boat and headed to the site. Elena wore a specialized wetsuit beneath her first outfit, a flowing crimson gown with fabric specifically treated to maintain its appearance underwater. Both she and Alexei used lightweight scuba gear that could be temporarily removed during shooting sequences to create the illusion that Elena was naturally suspended in the ocean depths. The first hour passed successfully, with Elena demonstrating remarkable breath control, as Alexei captured images of her appearing to drift effortlessly among coral formations. Ramesh maintained vigilant supervision, ensuring neither photographer nor model strayed too close to delicate coral or ventured beyond their experience level. As they began the third shooting sequence at a depth of approximately 10 meters, Ramesh noticed a change in the behavior of the smaller reef fish. A sudden exodus from one section of the reef indicated the presence of a predator. Not an unusual occurrence, but something that warranted attention. He signaled to Alexei that they should be prepared to end the session, but before the photographer could acknowledge, a large shadow emerged from the blue. A tiger shark, later estimated to be nearly 4 meters in length, glided into view. Tiger sharks were not common in this specific area, but were known to inhabit Maldivian waters. This particular specimen moved with the unhurried confidence of an apex predator, its distinctive striped pattern rippling as it surveyed this unusual intrusion into its hunting grounds. Ramesh immediately signaled for both Elena and Alexei to remain absolutely still. The standard protocol for unexpected shark encounters emphasized calm movements and maintaining visual contact with the animal. Elena, partially obscured behind a coral outcropping and absorbed in maintaining her pose, did not immediately notice the shark's arrival or Ramesh's warning gestures. When she finally spotted the massive predator, her reaction was subtle but detectable, a slight tensing of her body, and a small release of bubbles as she instinctively gasped. This minor movement, combined with the flowing red fabric of her gown undulating in the current, appeared to trigger the shark's predatory instinct. Without warning, the tiger shark changed course, accelerating directly toward Elena. Ramesh launched himself in her direction, but the distance was too great. The shark struck with terrifying precision, its powerful jaws clamping around Elena's midsection. The force of the impact drove both model and predator deeper into the water column. Alexei, horror-struck, captured the entire sequence on his camera, images that would never be published but would later prove crucial to understanding the attack. Ramesh reached the scene seconds later, using his dive knife to strike at the shark's sensitive snout and gills. After what seemed an eternity but was likely less than 30 seconds, the shark released Elena and disappeared into the depths, leaving an expanding cloud of crimson in the water. Ramesh immediately began an emergency ascent with Elena, careful to avoid the potentially fatal complications of rising too quickly despite the desperate situation. Alexei followed, signaling frantically to the boat crew above. When they reached the surface, Elena was unconscious, having suffered catastrophic injuries to her torso and lower extremities. Despite the boat crew's immediate first aid efforts and the resort's medical team awaiting their arrival at the dock, Elena was pronounced dead before the medical evacuation helicopter could arrive from Mail. Subsequent investigation revealed that the shark had severed her femoral artery, leading to rapid blood loss that would have been difficult to survive even with immediate hospital access. The incident sent shockwaves through both the Maldivian tourism industry and the international fashion community. The resort temporarily suspended all water activities while marine biologists conducted a thorough assessment of local shark populations and behavior patterns. Alexei, deeply traumatized by witnessing his colleague's death, abandoned underwater photography entirely and retreated from public life for nearly 2 years. Ramesh, despite being cleared of any negligence by official investigation, carried the weight of the tragedy heavily. He eventually established a Shark Awareness Foundation in Elena's name, dedicated to promoting understanding and conservation of these misunderstood predators, while advocating for improved safety protocols in areas where humans and sharks coexist. Marine biologists who studied the incident concluded that several unusual factors had aligned to create the perfect storm of circumstances leading to the attack. The flowing red garment, combined with Elena's vertical positioning in the water column and the slight distress signals she unknowingly displayed, had likely triggered a predatory response rarely directed at humans. The incident, while devastating, provided valuable data that would inform future underwater safety guidelines for not only photographers, but all ocean users in shark-inhabited waters. Elena's family established a scholarship in her memory at Moscow's prestigious Academy of Fine Arts, ensuring that her brief but brilliant career would continue to inspire young artists for generations to come. In the Maldives, local dive operators now include her story in their safety briefings, a somber reminder that even in paradise, nature's most fundamental laws remain unchanged since prehistoric times. The waters off San Clemente Island, approximately 70 miles northwest of San Diego, California, had long served as the United States Navy's training ground. In 2022, these two worlds, military precision and primal nature, collided in an encounter that would shake even the most seasoned naval personnel. Lieutenant Commander Desmond Ramirez had been leading maritime security exercises for the past 3 years, training junior officers in small craft operations and coastal infiltration techniques. At 34, his reputation for thoroughness and commitment to safety protocols had earned him respect throughout the Special Warfare Command. On September 14th, he was overseeing a routine exercise involving a 5-person crew navigating a combat rubber raiding craft, CRRC, a small inflatable boat commonly used for coastal insertions. The team consisted of Ensign Joaquin Mendoza, Petty Officers First Class Tamara Washington and Kai Nguyen, and Petty Officers Second Class Bryson Holcomb and Marcus Chen. They had launched from the United States ship Comstock at 6 a.m., tasked with circumnavigating a portion of the island while practicing navigation and observation techniques in the early morning light. Weather conditions were ideal: light winds, minimal swells, and clear visibility. 2 hours into the exercise, the team had reached the northwestern tip of the island, an area known for strong currents where the deep Pacific waters meet the island's underwater shelf. Lieutenant Commander Ramirez had instructed the team to practice maintaining position in these challenging conditions, a skill critical for covert insertions, as Petty Officer Washington adjusted the engine throttle to counter a particularly strong current. The first indication of trouble came not from the water but from the sky. A juvenile bald eagle, one of several that nested on the island's cliffs, suddenly abandoned its hunting pattern and veered away from the water's surface. This behavior, what naturalists call predator avoidance, went unnoticed by the crew, a small detail that would later be considered significant in the official investigation. Moments later, the sea erupted around them, A massive splash rocked the small craft as something struck it from below with tremendous force. Petty Officer Chen, seated at the starboard bow, was thrown overboard by the impact. As the remaining crew struggled to stabilize the violently rocking boat, they caught their first glimpse of what had hit them. A great white shark estimated at nearly 16 feet in length, its dark gray dorsal fin cutting through the water as it circled back toward their position. Lieutenant Commander Ramirez immediately ordered Petty Officer Nguyen to assist Chen, who was struggling in the water approximately 5 meters from the boat. The situation deteriorated rapidly as they observed the shark's dorsal fin change direction, now moving directly toward Chen. Naval personnel were trained to maintain composure under extreme stress, but what followed tested the limits of that training. The shark approached Chen with frightening speed. Petty Officer Holcomb, reacting instinctively, grabbed a signal flare and ignited it, plunging it into the water near the shark's approach path. The bright chemical reaction and sudden plume of red smoke momentarily diverted the predator, allowing Nguyen to reach Chen and begin pulling him toward the boat. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Commander Ramirez discovered that the impact had damaged the boat's outboard motor, which now sputtered ineffectively. Using the handheld radio, he transmitted a distress call to the United States ship Comstock, reporting their position and situation with a calm precision that belied the chaos unfolding around him. As Nguyen and Chen neared the boat, the shark returned, this time striking the inflatable craft itself. Its powerful jaws clamped onto one of the pontoons, instantly deflating it and further destabilizing the already compromised vessel. Seawater poured in as the craft listed severely to starboard. Petty Officer Washington, drawing on her extensive survival training, deployed the emergency life raft while Holcomb continued to use visual and audio deterrents to confuse the shark. With remarkable coordination, the team managed to transfer to the life raft, pulling Chen, who had suffered lacerations to his left leg from the shark's rough skin during the initial contact, aboard last. The original craft now lay half submerged, its dark shape perhaps continuing to attract the shark's attention as it circled the area. Lieutenant Commander Ramirez maintained communication with the United States ship Comstock, which had already launched a rescue helicopter. The shark continued to investigate both the sinking craft and the life raft, occasionally bumping the latter from beneath, behavior that marine biologists would later describe as exploratory rather than overtly aggressive. 18 minutes after the initial distress call, the distinctive sound of rotor blades announced the arrival of an MH-60S Seahawk helicopter. The shark, apparently startled by the aircraft's noise and downdraft, finally retreated into deeper water. The rescue crew efficiently hoisted all 5 team members to safety, with particular urgency given to Petty Officer Chen, whose injuries, while not life-threatening, required immediate medical attention. Back aboard the United States ship Comstock, the team underwent medical evaluation and debriefing. Chen received 27 stitches for his lacerations, but suffered no permanent damage. The psychological impact, however, proved more significant. The Navy's operational psychology team was brought in to help the personnel process the encounter, recognizing that even elite military training doesn't prepare one for facing a prehistoric predator in its natural environment. The incident led to a review of training protocols in shark-prone waters. Navy consultants concluded the shark likely mistook the inflatable craft for a wounded seal, common prey for great whites in California. It was deemed a case of mistaken identity, not aggression. In response, Lieutenant Commander Ramirez pushed for marine predator awareness in coastal training. His report, praising the crew's disciplined reaction, became required reading at the Naval Special Warfare Training Center. San Clemente Island remains an active training site, now with heightened respect for the ocean's apex predators. The event stands as a reminder of nature's unpredictability and the resilience of those who face it. The coastal town situated at Australia's easternmost point in New South Wales has gained international recognition, not only for its stunning beaches and bohemian atmosphere, but also for its remarkable marine biodiversity. In 2018, this pristine environment became the setting for an encounter that would challenge one scientist's relationship with the ocean she had dedicated her life to studying. Dr. Maya Chandrasekhar, a 30-year-old marine ecologist affiliated with the University of Sydney's Department of Marine Science, had arrived in the town 3 weeks earlier to conduct research on coral reef resilience in warming oceans. With funding from the Australian Research Council and support from local conservation authorities, she led a small team documenting the health of reef systems within the marine protected area. Having grown up in coastal Sydney with an oceanographer father, Maya had developed a profound connection to the sea from childhood, eventually channeling this passion into academic excellence and fieldwork across the Indo-Pacific region. On the morning of March 8th, Maya and her research assistants, Doctors Oliver Blackwood and Freya Johnston, embarked on what was intended to be a routine survey of a reef system approximately 1 kilometer offshore from Wategos Beach. Weather conditions were optimal: clear skies, light easterly winds, and exceptional water clarity following a week without significant rainfall. The team had selected this particular morning to document marine life activity during the incoming tide, when nutrient-rich waters typically increase fish presence around the reef formations. The researchers anchored their small research vessel, the Poseidon, over a section of reef that dropped from 3 meters to nearly 15 meters in depth. After reviewing their survey protocols and checking their equipment, the 3 scientists entered the water, each assigned to document different aspects of the ecosystem. Maya would focus on photographing indicator species. Oliver would collect water samples at varying depths, and Freya would measure coral growth rates at predetermined stations. For nearly 40 minutes, the survey progressed without incident. The reef displayed remarkable health, with diverse coral formations providing habitat for a multitude of species. Maya had just finished photographing a particularly vibrant collection of soft corals when she noticed an unusual movement in her peripheral vision. Approximately 10 meters away, gliding through the water with unmistakable purpose, was a mako shark. Mako sharks, while not uncommon in Australian waters, rarely ventured so close to shore in the Byron Bay area. This specimen appeared to be a juvenile male, roughly 2 meters in length, not fully grown but still a formidable predator capable of swimming at speeds exceeding 70 kilometers per hour. Maya, having encountered various shark species during her career, initially maintained her position, knowing that most sharks show little interest in humans unless provoked or confused. She slowly raised her underwater camera, recognizing the scientific value of documenting this unexpected visitor. The shark continued its path parallel to the reef edge, appearing to hunt the schools of mackerel that had gathered in the area. Maya signaled to her colleagues, pointing toward the shark while displaying the predetermined hand sign, indicating they should maintain distance but not panic. What happened next occurred with such speed that later recollections from all 3 scientists contained slight variations. The shark, having completed a wide circuit of the area, suddenly changed direction. Whether attracted by the metallic elements of Maya's camera equipment, the vibrations of her movements, or some other stimulus remains a subject of scientific debate. What is undisputed is that the mako accelerated directly toward her position with alarming velocity. Maya attempted to maintain her composure, slowly backing toward a large coral formation while keeping her eyes on the approaching predator. This textbook response to shark approaches had served her well in previous encounters. However, the mako's behavior defied standard patterns. Instead of veering away at the last moment, a common investigatory behavior among sharks, it struck Maya's right arm with such force that witnesses described hearing the impact through the water. The shark's teeth penetrated her wetsuit and flesh in an instant, creating deep lacerations from her wrist to her elbow. The power of the bite momentarily pulled Maya underwater, disorienting her and causing her to lose her regulator. In that critical moment, as blood began clouding the water around her, Maya's extensive training overrode panic. She retrieved her regulator with her left hand, cleared it with a forceful exhalation, and immediately began kicking toward the surface. Oliver, positioned nearest to Maya, witnessed the attack and immediately abandoned his sampling equipment to assist his colleague. By the time he reached her, the shark had circled back, apparently drawn by the blood now trailing through the water. In a desperate maneuver, Oliver placed himself between Maya and the predator, using his aluminum sample collection tube as a defensive barrier. This intervention, combined with Freya's arrival moments later, and her deployment of an emergency shark deterrent device, a small canister that released a dense cloud of clove oil extract, known to temporarily overwhelm sharks' sensitive smell receptors, created sufficient confusion to allow the team to begin their ascent to the surface. The Mako made one final pass but did not reinitiate contact. The three scientists broke the surface approximately 20 meters from their anchored vessel. Freya immediately began signaling to a nearby recreational fishing boat, which responded by moving quickly to their position. The fishing vessel's captain, Russell Tennyson, a retired paramedic, recognized the seriousness of Maya's injuries and implemented immediate first aid while radioing the Byron Bay Marine Rescue for emergency assistance. Within 15 minutes, a water ambulance arrived on the scene. Maya remained conscious throughout the ordeal, her scientific mind seemingly detached from her physical trauma, as she provided clear descriptions of the shark and the attack mechanics to the first responders, details that would later prove valuable to both medical personnel and marine researchers. At the hospital, Maya underwent 6 hours of microsurgery to repair damaged tendons, muscles, and blood vessels in her arm. Remarkably, no major arteries had been severed, and she had maintained sufficient presence of mind during the attack to avoid the rapid movements that often exacerbate shark bite injuries. The attending surgeon, Dr. Vivian McPherson, later commented that Maya's calm response likely prevented the loss of her arm and possibly her life. During her recovery, Maya collaborated with shark researchers from the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries to analyze the incident. They concluded that the Mako's unusual behavior might have been influenced by several factors: the presence of baitfish in the area, potential territorial competition from larger sharks offshore, and the possibility that the metallic components in Maya's camera housing created electromagnetic signals similar to those produced by wounded fish. 4 months after the attack, Maya returned to the water, initially in protected swimming areas, then gradually venturing back to snorkeling in open water. Her research focus shifted somewhat, incorporating studies on shark behavior and human-shark interactions into her broader marine ecology work. She became an advocate for both shark conservation and improved safety protocols for marine researchers, frequently noting that her experience represented an anomaly rather than the norm in human-shark encounters. The incident led to revised safety guidelines for scientific diving operations in Australian marine protected areas, including mandatory carrying of shark deterrent devices and enhanced communication systems between research teams and shore-based support staff. Maya's detailed account of the attack, published in the Journal of Marine Behavior, became required reading for marine science students across Australia. When interviewed for a documentary the following year, Maya expressed no resentment toward the shark or fear of returning to her work.